Hi friends, welcome to episode number 8 of our Workflow Beginner's Guide series. In this episode, we will discuss in detail about configuring the automatic actions in the workflow editor itself and how it can enable you to define the conditions in order to automatically approve or reject the purchase orders or purchase requisitions which are typically raised in your Dynamics 365 Finance and Operation. Make sure that you subscribe to the channel D365 Talks or follow my profile in LinkedIn. With that note, let's quickly jump into today's topic. So we have this agenda. So I just made some modifications for the last 3 episodes, and we covered this approvals mobile app interface in our previous episode number 7. So now we will primarily spend time on this actions and how do we configure this automatic actions as part of the workflow editor. And this is something which you can do in the workflow editor canvas space and trigger automatic completion of workflows based on whether you want to approve or reject. Probably we'll see if we have time, we'll try to cover about the change request in this episode, or we will take this up in the next episode number 9. So talking about actions, first of all, action is basically a task that can be assigned to multiple people or to a work item queue that is monitored by several people. So basically this is a task that can be, you can assign it to a originator or to any of the user or workflow hierarchy, that the way we have seen in the previous episode, or this can be assigned to multiple people for a task. However, only one person can complete a task. So if you have assigned to a specific, even for a user group, then one person can complete it at a time. It cannot be for a group of users. And these actions can be like, you complete your workflow, you reject, you delegate. When you delegate, it goes to some other user, and you can reassign it for, like, let's say if you do not want to, the way we have seen in our previous episodes, if I gently reassign to myself in order to approve the workflows, and or you can approve it, or you can request a change. So in this case, I've just highlighted only the reject and approve in this case, because these are the two automatic actions which we can configure in Dynamics 365 Workflow Editor. So now we'll quickly get into the Dynamics 365 screen. So I'll take you to so we have the Dynamics 365 screen. I will also share this Word the MS Learn document link, where we have given the detailed overview of the various actions that can be performed, including complete, reject, delegate, request change, reassign. Release is something which it's part of a member of a work item queue. This is not something which used day in and day out, but you should be definitely aware of, like, the actions like reassign, request change, delegate, and reject or approve. So now for our use case of automatic actions, we will look into how the system can automatically approve the request based on, like, whenever it is received from a specific vendor or a vendor group, and you have the possibility to configure those information in the workflow editor as well. So for this case, first of all let's check procurement and sourcing parameter. I just want to ensure whether activate change management is enabled, so this is enabled. And let me quickly get into the workflow, procurement sourcing workflows. So I'm going to pick the purchase order workflow. I have already logged inside the workflow editor. So in the editor canvas, so what you have to do is, so this is the tile which shows approve purchase orders. So what I'm going to right click on the tile and click on properties. So inside properties, you can see there is an option for automatic actions, right? So if you click on automatic actions, and if you enable automatic actions, you need to add the conditions under which the automatic auto completion action should be taken. So here, if you kind of click on this drop down, you can see the two actions which you can take, like approve or reject. So for these two actions which you want to automatically performed in your system, you have to define the conditions. So let's say if I want the workflow to be automatically approved, I'll click on add condition, under the condition like let's say purchase order. So these are the list of fields right from let's say an accounting date. You can configure the buyer groups. If typically it comes from a specific buyer group, whether you want that to be automatically approved, or you can configure the dimensions. This is something which even I have seen as a when I was working as a functional consultant. Even I have seen people typically try to add additional dimensions based on which they want to automatically approve the incoming purchase order request, or you can add an invoice account. So these are the list of all the fields for which you want to define whether you want to automatically approve the purchase orders or not. So for this simple straightforward example, what we are going to do is we will add the vendor account, and as we know, the vendor account for Acme is 1001, and I'm going to add that vendor account number, or you can simply click on these three dots, so it will give you the list of all the vendor accounts in Dynamics 365. And so what I'm configuring is I'm enabling this automatic action and expecting the system to automatically approve the purchase orders if the purchase orders are generated for the vendor 1001. And you can also turn on these notifications, like when notifications should be sent. Let's say if I approve or delegate, when the notifications need to be sent. And of course, let me know if you want me to have a detailed video for enabling the notifications. If I enable approve, then I have to kind of configure the recipient and user details as well, and which is something which is self-explanatory. You can try this out on your own. But if you want the notifications, then you have to appropriately enable those, and then configure the message information as well here. And if you go to advanced settings, and of course this is like you can set a time limit for the workflow element in order to actions to be allowed for this workflow. Let's say in this case we are allowing the workflow to approve, reject and request change, but this is not necessarily tied to automatic actions. But instead, if you want the approver to view, like either they approve and reject, if you decide you do not want them to request a change or delegate it to some other business user, then you can disable these two as well. But these are like additional capabilities or advanced settings which we do not want to focus on right now. I'm just saying for this video purpose. But what we are focusing right now is to enable the automatic actions. We have enabled it, and we have added the vendor account. So I'm configuring in the system that whenever any purchase order created for 1001, once it is submitted for approval in the workflow, it has to be automatically approved. So let me close this. I think this is because the action we have enabled the time limit. Let me disable that. So this is also the in the editor, if you double click on the error and warnings pane, then it will take you directly to the page which has the error to be corrected. So I think we are good. I'll simply save and close, and then now we will navigate back to Dynamics 365 screen and quickly create a purchase order for Acme Office Supplies and submit it for approval workflow. In this case, I am expecting the system to automatically complete the workflow and take the purchase order status from in review to approved. So I will activate the new version, and once the new version is activated, we can also see that from the purchase order workflow form. So inside the workflow form in the procurement and sourcing, if you go to versions, then we can also see whether the latest version is activated or not. And you can activate that from here as well. So in this case right now I can see that the 1.4 is not activated, and currently it is 1.3. I believe that this workflow is completed. I think yeah, once this is successfully activated, then we can see that here as well. Let me close this again and let me try to open the versions. Yeah, I can see now this has got activated, right? Now what I'll do is I'll quickly go to the purchase order form, all purchase orders, and inside the all purchase orders form, I will quickly create a new purchase order. I'll quickly create it for like Acme Office Supply, and then let it be any site and warehouse. That could be totally fine. I'll click on OK, and I'll put the item number and the quantity, let it be 1. I'll submit this for workflow. So now you can see that it is in draft. When I submit, it will go to in review. But in this case, I'm not going to reassign the workflow, but instead I am expecting the system to auto complete the workflow to approved, because that's what we have configured for the 1001 vendor, right? But if we go to the workflow history, we can also check the steps which are primarily kind of performed in the tracking details list. I'll just simply continue to refresh this page. But meanwhile, I'll go back to the slide. So like I said, for the automatic actions, you can configure it for reject status or for the approve status. And as a user, you are defining this you are predefining these automatic actions in the workflow editor. And then this is primarily would be performed by your system admin users, and then once the system admin users have configured the reject or approval automatic actions, then the managers are not necessarily going to review every purchase order which is coming into their system for approval processes. So that's a good thing, right? So you do not, so typically what I have seen based on my experiences, so typically these are like automatic actions configured at vendor group level, where you add the multiple vendors to a specific group, where you typically reject based on their credit limits, or typically you tend to approve based on the frequently bought items. So based on which you can configure the workflow for automatic actions. So that's about the automatic actions what we have. Let me go back to the Dynamics 365 screen and I will refresh this page. So yeah, I think I can see the steps. You can see here the autocomplete action, the condition is called and the condition is actually evaluated to true. You can see the condition is evaluated to true and action taken, which is approved. So now you can see the workflow is completed. So we have not necessarily approved this purchase order document, but instead the system itself, once I will refresh this page, it will take the status of the document from in review to approved. So you can see that the system has automatically reviewed that the purchase order is coming from 1001, and then it has approved the purchase order by itself. So yeah, if it have been like any other purchase order, let's quickly check that as well. So like I'm creating a purchase order for the land packaging supplies and giving the same warehouse, then I'll hit the OK button. I'm going to add the same item number. In this case, it should not be auto completed to approval. Instead, it should be assigned with the user. That's warning message is fine. Let me submit it for approval. So in this case, I believe the user in this case must be Inga. Let's check that. I'm not sure. Based on my past configuration, I'm saying. So in this case, because the purchase order should not be auto approved, it should continue to remain in review status. So let's go to the workflow history. I think of course the system need to run the batch job in order to trigger the workflow. I'll refresh this form. So in the next episode, meanwhile, I'll try to cover about the details of how do we request a change if the change request is enabled. So this is something which is also like typically used in your day-to-day workflows, where your user can initiate a change request, and once the order is approved and confirmed, every change request is tracked in your confirmation journals. But I believe that we will take this in the next episode, not in this one. We will quickly check what is the action taken for this particular purchase order. So now you can see here the auto completion condition is called, and in this case you can see the approved purchase order evaluated to false and it is not true. So action taken, no automatic action taken. So that's what it is. That's the expected behavior, and it is now assigned to the user Inga. So Inga has to go and approve this purchase order request. So that's the expected business process flow. So hope you got the topic of assigning automatic actions in the workflow in Dynamics 365. So that brings us to end of this episode. Make sure that you subscribe to the channel D365 Talks or follow my profile in LinkedIn. See you soon in episode number 9. Thank you.